Happy Thursday, Street Canines. Welcome to another episode of Savage Universe. Your other follicularly challenged host here, Chris Landauer, on behalf of JM, who's traveling. He's actually coming up here to visit me in Colorado, so it's pretty cool. But it's a snowstorm, and he's got to drive safe. So he is not hosting right now. I'm hosting. And today our guest is Paul Vincent of Streetwolves. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you. Hello.
So this setting is near to my interests, dear to my heart. 80s inspired synthwave, Miami Vice with some cool strangeness. Like if Miami Vice were like the dream you had about Miami Vice, this is it. There's the whole like neon city like strangeness going on. So tell folks about like I'm gonna pop a link into the chat for you guys to check this out because it is on Drive-Thru RPG, coming off a very successful Kickstarter. But tell us what is Streetwolves, sir?
The basic version is it's a retro neo-noir mystery action adventure setting for Savage Worlds. So that's kind of wordy, but it's like you said, it's like Miami Vice, but a bit more moody, very much inspired by synthwave music, and which is very retro sounding with synth sounds and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of like the 80s seen through like the art where it's got the saturated colors and all that kind of stuff. So but it's detectives on the edge fighting evil that's hiding in the shadows and that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. So talk a little bit more about how did you take synthwave as an inspiration, and how does that work into the aesthetics and the mechanics of the game?
Well, mostly it first started with like the artwork, right? Like what's my color palette gonna be? Like how's this book gonna look? And then like I started taking it another step further from there. I was like, well, what about this thing influences the design of the setting? So I basically invented this thing called vapor, which at night in certain cities, it gives the sky like a weird colors and this weird glow. Okay, now that we have that, what does that stuff do? Well, it can give some people powers, right? Which are light based. And so it is kind of like a snowball effect where you kind of look at like, well, what is synthwave? And then, okay, well then how does it affect the world that we're going to be playing in? I have certain things in there like drive, which is a way to track like how on the edge your agents are. Like are they doing well, or are they really stressed out, kind of thing. Like, and I'm trying to think. There's also the I have notes here because I get tongue tied, so I want to check out my notes.
Go on.
Go ahead.
I was going to say like I was going to read the blurb on that Scott wrote up for the game. I think he might have snatched it from me for something you wrote, but it's really well written. So I was going to just while you look up the thing you're looking at, it's like players take on the role of street wolves, operatives that work outside the system as investigators and problem solvers. They fight numerous foes in the shadows, such as sinister conspiracy, a powerful cult, corporate goons, Soviet spies. Oh, I love it. So 80s. Drug traffickers while facing their own inner demons. Synthwave is baked into the system through the emphasis on heroes on the edge of fighting against forces under the surface. There's also the mysterious phenomenon, like you mentioned, named vapor, which causes cities to have unusual colors at night, and it gives it the unlucky vapor poisoned unusual powers as a blessing and as a curse. That's pretty. I mean, I just love that kind of concept. It's like it's not just. I think one of the problems with doing nostalgia is that nostalgia is a thing in your brain about what you thought the past was like, not necessarily what it was. So you almost have to create a new experience to continue on that is much more like what you thought the old experience was like versus what the actual history was like, right? Like you're looking like a guy like me who probably has a good knee and a bad knee right about now, you kind of grunt when you stand up, and you got the G.I. Joe right behind you. Okay, so child of the 80s, awesome. But yeah, you kind of come back and look at some of that stuff. It's like, well, I initially saw that as the eyes of a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old. And now as a cough, 30, 40, whatever year old, some of it doesn't hold up, right? Like some of it is just like, oh man, this was basic and preachy and weird. And So I love that you've evolved kind of the aesthetics and the content, but it's new and fresh because there wasn't,
Yeah.
an 80s spy show with poison vapor and neon, actual neon sunsets, like the opening credits maybe, but not actually during the show. So I think that kind of offers you a creative way of like touching on those awesome, nostalgic, interesting things, but also having a new game that's it's more relevant for today and today's gaming styles, and that's pretty cool. So
there was a quote, I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something to do with like Rogue Squadron, or the Rogue One, I'm sorry, the Star Wars movie, where they wanted to recreate the Star Wars that you remembered, not the actual Star Wars. I mean, they did a good job, but that's kind of how it is. It's like, I wanted to go into the past and make something that's like that, but altered. And with it being a game setting, you have to like create a number of things that allow a GM and players to get creative. So like, if this game was just Miami Vice, right? Like, there's so many setting, like adventures that you could do with just cops, busting drug dealers. So you have to like build in these little things for people to latch onto. So like the adventures I run, we really haven't touched Vapor much at all, because we've been doing more the Miami Vice thing. But there's lots of like other people that could just have like a whole team full of vapor powered people. It's so trying to build in different options for the setting, using like all these aesthetics and everything.
That's awesome. So kind of in what you envision is like an ideal adventuring party. And I know this isn't, a fantasy trope kind of game, but like, what percentage do you think of players would it make sense to have vapor powers, and like what are the options for players that are not vapor poisoned?
Well, so the way it is though, if you're vapor poisoned and you have powers, there's severe limitations to them. Like without a special edge, you have a hard time accessing them during the day. You have like, basically you could have pale skin and sunlight affects you. So it's almost kind of like sort of being a vampire, but not really, where you have like these certain limitations. But the bonus is like, if you're in a party and you're undercover or something, right? And the one person who's really good with a machine gun doesn't have their machine gun, but you can use blast or some power. Like, it's just having that in your pocket without like having to sneak a weapon in, right? You're like a living weapon. So there are some negatives, but then there's some of those bonuses to doing that.
Nice. Oh, and you've designed for other systems other than Savage Worlds, and I think even your own system. So what has it been like? Why was Savage Worlds your choice on the system to bring Streetwolves to?
So originally, when I started, I'm not going to get too much into it, but when I started what became Streetwolves, I was really, really into the Star Wars D6, the old West End games system. But I just got sick of rolling big piles of D6s when we got higher leveled or whatever. So as I started looking around to see what was out there, like Savage Worlds hit a lot of the things I liked without like that issue. I liked the target number of 4 for nearly everything. But it also had all like these things that were like cinematic and fast without it being like super crunchy. So it was just hitting all those marks. And then I was really excited when I saw that you guys had a pretty good licensing deal where it was like, oh, I could make my own thing, right? Using the Savage Worlds logo. And that was the big appeal, was like, it's hitting all these desires I have for what I want this thing to do. And you let me work with you. So
right, only the cool kids. Which is cool. I got to sign your book this last weekend. We can go at GameholeCon. We'll get to that in a second. We'll talk about like really kind of the cool little thing that is GameholeCon, because it's a pretty great convention. But I do think that like if there was a Michael Mann or Don Belisario produced RPG, like Savage Worlds totally fits the. Those are the guys who did Miami Vice and Magnum PI, and I mean the wonderful things from my youth, which was like 20 years ago, not 40 years ago. Cough, cough. And but yeah, so let's talk about GameholeCon. So we'll get back to. I'm going to pop up Streetwolves because you got a great little portfolio, and I think I'd be remiss if I didn't show all the awesome neon. It definitely matches our color, like the pink blue. But I had a chance to run into you at GameHoleCon. Have you been keeping that secret? Is that your big local convention, or is John Doom was digging you on the Wisconsin accent coming in? But John didn't get to come this year, but his cousin was there. But anyway, tell us about Gamehole, sir. What's the deal there? How awesome?
Honestly, I've only been a couple times, so it's funny because I think this last time I think I only went one time before that, and so yeah, I haven't gone to a lot of gaming conventions actually. Like most of the conventions I've ever gone to, it's kind of funny, is like those like big Comic-Con conventions. Like that's how I discovered Delta Green, was at a comic convention. They had
really?
they had the Call of Cthulhu table, and they had a couple books at Delta Green, and I was like, what's this? And that's how I fell in love with Delta Green. But I really, I've been to PAX Unplugged, I've been to Gen Con, but it was only like I think I had missed a Gamehole Con year when I found out about it. It was like one of those things where it was too late. So then the last year I went to, I was like, hey, it's pretty good. And then this year I went, and it was for longer. So yeah, it's a cool one. I think I'm not.
Yeah,
I was like scared. I was like, am I all alone?
What am I doing?
Ejected.
No, I think Gamehole is a pretty unique convention in the sense that I think it kind of in your own like menu of conventions you've gone to. Gen Con is just very different than the Comic Con, even though they're both huge. Kind of a Gen Con is very different than a Dragon Con. But I think Gamehole's got this really cool little niche where it is big enough to get all the things you'd actually want out of a Gen Con. Like all the industry folks kind of show up there. A bunch of them do. You can do the panel thing if you want. You can play a lot of games if you want. But it's not so huge that you're ever in like a 500 person line. It feels very homey.
When I think of Gen Con, I think of my feet hurting.
Right?
So big. It takes like over a day to get through like the whole, the dealer hall part, right? Like it's just so enormous. So yeah, it was really cool because I got to see so many people from, the Savage Worlds community, people outside of that. And it was like I was running into people that I didn't even know they'd be there, because it's small, but it's big in a way.
Yeah.
And, so that was like one of the cool things about it. So
yeah, it's like bigger than the small cons, the ones that are just truly local and you don't get prize support or industry folks really showing up, and it's smaller than the huge ones like a PAX or a Gen Con or a Dragon Con. But I think it's a good. And then the local, the Savage Alliance, they're great. They put on a really good show. Some really great game masters, and just a good variety of games, and super friendly folks who give you beers at like 8:30 in the morning, and they're like, "You want a beer?" I'm like, "I guess so." I can't say no because gotta be nice. Yeah,
it's also Wisconsin too. We are beer drinkers.
There was a rumor they were going to move it to Milwaukee next year, but no, it will be back in the same place next year in Madison. So,
well, I would prefer it Milwaukee because I live in Milwaukee, but I could understand why people want in Madison. So,
I'm glad that you spilled the beans about Milwaukee, because JM told me that there's a place in Milwaukee called, speaking of like 80s and Soviet spies, I guess it's called the Safe House.
Yeah,
a speakeasy, and so I kind of need to go, and so
it's definitely worth the trip. And it's just interesting how you get in and everything. There's like a secret entrance, and then there's a side entrance that's like an alleyway, and then they ask you for the password, which I won't give you. But yeah, and then there's all kinds of weird stuff in there. So.
Right, and it just sounds like I would love to do, I don't know whether an RPG or a puzzle box or something kind of Cold War themed. So it's like, well, let's just go and do some research at the Safe House, because I love the 80s, love Cold War stuff. So it seems like a natural kind of cool experience. So I haven't been to Milwaukee yet, so I guess I'll have to add it to the list, and then I'll bribe you. I'll take you to lunch, then you can give me the password, and then we'll go. But
if next time you go to GameHoleCon, drive an hour and a half away to the Safe House.
Right.
the drive back. It's just a short trip, so
The the yeah. James John Dooms walked by there. Huh? You can't walk by a place that's secret, sir. Like the there we go. There we go. I'll get the password. Someone will leak. That's awesome. I appreciate you guys. Let's talk about the Kickstarter. So Streetwolves came to Kickstarter. Great, fantastic. Your second Kickstarter funded, and you are currently in delivery of goods. Like you're along the production process, but
oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
Oh no, go ahead. All you.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, there's some digital things that were unlocked that I've been, releasing. We just had the adventure by Christian Name did an adventure, so that just hit. I'm working on some like vehicle and pet sheets right now, like basically character sheets to keep track of like pets and vehicles. And
how do pets work in the game?
Well, it's just you can have. I don't want to get too much into it, but you could basically have a dog and use like an animal control like skill to control the animals. I do recommend that you be kind of gentle with the pets, like just don't kill them off, because it's a lot of people don't like a dog dying in a movie. And also, like, theoretically in this world, it would take a lot of money to like train dogs, and you can't just like, I don't know. It just mostly like the dog should have a little bit of plot armor, but
I agree.
But
no, I 100% agree, and it's actually an interesting design challenge, because I'm right with you. Like I've got 2 fuzz buckets under my feet right now, and I've seen it both. I've had it happen both ways. One, like in Savage Worlds, if the pets aren't wild cards, it's very easy to kill them or have them get killed. Just because they only get the 1 dice, and they don't have bennies of their own. So one bad encounter, if you want to make them kind of combat and operationally effective, it's very easy to just bye birdie or doggy or cat. But I set it up one in GURPS where the dog was the most effective character in the party of like operatives and agents, just because their speed is better than human speed. That's more important in GURPS than it really is in Savage Worlds. And there's some advantages there where it's like, oh yeah, the dog can do everything. Like we just watch back, and it's like the Lassie show where Lassie runs around and solves everything, and all of us like with the guns, not so much. But it is a hard design. Like I too want to create something that's kind of got, you can have your animal companion in the game with you, and then you almost wonder if like, if you don't like violence against animals and kids, but you're in an RPG, which is kind of inherently simulationist violent in regards, like, do you lean into something more like Scythe, where it's like, okay, you're cool and you have a cool animal avatar, but you're both basically the same operating force, so it's not, you go together, you're the thing, but it's not statted separately, per se, and whatever. But anyway, it's an interesting design challenge. So.
Yeah, and what I like about Savage Worlds is pretty easy to have like extras that are minions or whatever on your team, and it's essentially just basically a free extra where you don't really have to invest too much into getting that dog. It's just like basically it comes with your character, and you have like a normal path, except like maybe 1 or 2 edges you might want to take, and you can be just like a regular soldier or a con artist with a dog. It doesn't matter, right? Because it's a classless system, so.
I love that. Totally rad. I did that with SWAT. I made one of these warning screens or preview screens and kind of changed it. So I totally dig that. That is awesome. So for folks who missed out on the Kickstarter, if you can go to page pre-order now, like it looks like you got hosted pre-orders on
BackerKit.
Okay, I'm gonna throw that link in the chat, so if folks haven't gotten on there yet, they can kind of get some of that for me.
I'm gonna close that down fairly soon, just because. Oh, no. When I get when I know the books are on their way, I'm going to focus on fulfillment when I get them and not new orders. So like it's open for now until like, probably a couple weeks from now or something like that. So
hopefully I'll get you a few more sales. And
then I've got one of the book right here. This is the proof. It's got
Oh, scored. Ooh, UV spec lighting. Nice. How many pages did it come in at? It's a nice thick chunky book.
100 and I gotta look now.
Yeah.
183, something like that. So
nice. Oh, are you a design person by trade? Because I think between you and your three cats, somebody's got some really nice like layout and design skills.
I am a web designer. I went to school for that. I didn't really take much like graphic design stuff, but it's the gaming stuff that got me more into graphic design because I wanted to be good at it. I don't think I'm perfect at it. I know there's people that are way better, but I feel confident. It took me a long time to feel confident enough where it's like, oh yeah, I'm pretty okay. So, I'm going to be a little modest here, but it just took a lot of work. There's a lot of things that were bad before I got to where I am now, essentially. So,
So why don't you talk a little bit about like your kind of your history and your process? So this was your second Kickstarter. You had a Kickstarter before this that way you ran. Let me see. I think I figured it out. The Wicked Forever King Hungers is a TTRPG. Tell us, folks. It's not for Savage Worlds, but tell us, folks, about it. What is that property? And then we'll get to like what you're doing next.
I wanted a really small game that I could crowdfund as essentially a test before I ran Streetwolves, because I didn't want Streetwolves to like me to have all kinds of mistakes and stuff running up, because I assumed it would be a little bit bigger, right? Because people had already bought the PDF and had known about Streetwolves. So I made a dark fantasy game that's kind of funny because I can't help not being a little funny. And essentially it's a lasers and feelings game. So there's only one stat that your character has. Basically, it's a roll under or over, depending on what you pick you're good at. You're basically this doomed adventurer that's trying to stop the Forever King from feeding before he's able to feast. If you fail, he feeds, and it's essentially like a apocalyptic thing happens. So it's kind of like this a cycle where he wakes up, you try to, and it repeats. And so the Kickstarter for that, I think it was only like a couple $100, and then it got, I don't remember what it was, but it was like $1,000 or something like that. And the response to that was really encouraging. So I ended up like redoing the layout on it and having printed copies. So nice. I'll go to conventions with it. It's a very small book, but and there was also a challenge for me is, can I make something without paying for artwork where I use that really old art, that's copyright free, that you can cut out and do stuff with. So that's essentially what I think. I only have one art piece on the cover from Hodag RPG. And that's the only art that was like paid for in the book. The rest is all me like cutting stuff up in Photoshop. So to give it that weird look. So
no, it's great. And I think it's also very encouraging that if you, even without an art budget, you can, choose smartly, put in the time, you do a lot of manual labor on a game and just get published, and then learn the skills, get the better skills, advance. How have you found publishing under the swag program or as a licensee with Savage Worlds? Like,
well, I'm under Ace, but I mean, it was, so the most nerve-wracking thing was trying to get the approval. So you have to put together a package, and it has to look nice. And this being like my first thing like this, it was, I was really freaking out. I worked really hard to get it to like look good. And, I was approved right away, and it was I really enjoy the external validation of that, because I'm very hard on myself. But then if I send it to somebody else and they're like, you're approved for this license, I was like, heck yeah, I'm actually on the right path. So that was really beneficial for me. But I enjoy how supportive you guys are, and being in the newsletter is really awesome when I'm able to get something in there. And, I enjoy just talk. I'm pretty active in the Discord, and I'm usually, I don't know where you're just kind of like reading the posts on the Facebook page.
You're lurking.
Lurking. I'm lurk a lot. Sometimes I'm on there too, but I do a lot of lurking on the face. But yeah, I really enjoy working with Pinnacle. It's pretty cool. So
Yeah, well, it sounds like you found some cool allies within the Savage Worlds community for your next project. So we were talking beforehand about like getting a book out, getting something printed it's daunting. There's a lot of things that even after you think you're done with the book, then it's just like, oh wait, now it's got to be up to the spec for a printer, and there's all that back and forth, and you got to order a whole batch of them and figure out distribution. And I mean, there's a lot more business things that come into play after you're like, oh, I want to be creative and people to love my idea, and it's like, oh, this is going to be a real business. So you're going a little easier on the next project, but it's not for Savage Worlds, but it's for a Savage Worlds adjacent thing. So tell us about what's your next upcoming creative endeavor.
it's Monster Truckers Long Haul into the Worst Lands. It's basically you play a monster, so you're like a Dracula or a Frankenstein or something, and you drive a big rig into a post-apocalyptic type of world. You make deliveries, find weird things, fight weird creatures. It's this kind of fun, creepy adventure sort of thing. But it's rules like it's based on Tricube Tales by Zadmar Games. So people watching this probably know Zadmar. He cooked up a pretty good system where I just, again, like going from Streetwolves was like years of work. And so doing these little games is kind of like a palate cleanser for me, that I can get more stuff out quicker, where, I'll do a big thing and then a little thing. I go back to Streetwolves. I'll make something for Streetwolves, and that, I have Savage World settings in my future. Monster Truckers might be one in the future, just because the more I work on it and the more I enjoy living in that world as I make it, I think, wow, I could really, maybe I could have an edge for this, or, a hindrance, or a table full of these things, So, but in the meantime, yeah, it's been I'm really looking forward to it. It's coming out next year. It's right now. You can sign up on BackerKit. There's one of those what are they? The pre-order or pre-launch page.
Okay. So give me the full title, and I'll get a link for you guys. So it's Monster Truckers
Long Haul into the Worst Lands. It's
nice.
A long title. I mostly just call it Monster Truckers.
Awesome. Well, I will get a link for folks, because that just sounds hilarious. And there we go. Here it is. Oh, I like the art choices. Yeah, I like that the vector on the. That's a good choice for a teaser piece. So here we go. So the let's see. Let me get the link in the chat, and I'll get the title with the link so people know what they're clicking on. And but yeah, I mean, so here's a little insight thing for folks for like the for small time publishers. Getting the word out is the hardest thing ever, right? Because you don't have a huge catalog of previous sales to have a fan base that's going to go champion you, to get you into their friends to see you, and for crowdfunding success, you really do kind of want a big first day, right? Because all the algorithms you can't control are triggered by the BackerKit or Kickstarter or any of the platforms, like kind of knowing that people are liking your stuff. So these landing pages are a great way to build up that following. So let me pop that link. So that link is in the chat now. Get ready for Monster Truckers Long Haul into the Worst Lands. Did it really merge? Hopefully the link is separate when you click. If not, maybe I'll put another one in just to make sure it's.
Well, yeah, it is what you're saying with the pre-following and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, if you launch without a certain amount, and you have to do like these mental math gymnastics to be like, okay, if I get X amount of people spending this much, then I'll have this much. If you don't launch with enough, then you won't fund. Like, you have to have people following. It's so, that's why I started the grind for followers now, because I've only got a couple games under my belt. We're only up to 84 followers, which is awesome. But, it's not like I can just say, hey, I'm going to have this game, and then I'll have like hundreds of people follow right away. So I've still got to like churn and cycle and grind and try to get the word out for this stuff.
Yeah, no, that is awesome. So good job on being ahead of the game, because a lot of folks like, oh, they find a window and they're like, wait, I should start advertising now. It's like, oh no, you needed to be collect names and email addresses for months and months and months. And it's hard to be that on top of the ball when you're a little guy, a little publisher. But I also want to show folks to your lovely catalog. It's currently growing and getting bigger at Drive-Thru RPG. So that was the other link somewhere I threw back up in there. Let's see. Here we go. So Table Cat Games is your imprint, and you can see. I mean, you're doing all the right things. You're doing what Peg is doing for our settings, where you put in NPC cards. You got archetypes. I love it that you even have like the Turbo EP music. That's pretty awesome. There is a pay what you want jumpstart. So like.
Please pay $0 if you want to look at it for free.
Just grab it, get it, folks. Like, it is cool. See how cool it is. Look at that cover. And yeah, love your light on dark design aesthetic. I think it looks really nice. And like when you're flipping around in the book, it looks really great too. I mean, yeah, look how nice this looks, guys. So yeah, sign up for some cash. Table Cat Games. This is a one. It's fun. I mean, I like your creativity. You're bent on your take on kind of. Creative, fun games that aren't a deep emotional investment. They just sound really fun. I mean, it sounds like well, I mean, it can be a deep emotional investment if you're like trying to stop the apocalypse. But I mean, it's like a cooler Miami Vice. Like, I think everyone at the table knows like we're here for some fun. Like we're turning. Yeah,
Yeah, my gaming group we'll get serious sometimes, but there's a lot, like, it's kind of like the ebbs and flows, like, oh, this is like a dramatic thing, and then we'll have like lots of goofy stuff, so it's kind of like a push and pull between like serious and just fun adventure stuff.
Right, and like, I mean, I think that always exists in RPGs, whether or not the game has it or not. Like, it's kind of why Monty Python is like the #1 referenced, thing. But that's a lot of like meta at the table between friends, and not what's in kind of the content. Whereas, I just think it's really fun to be able to embody some of the tropes of the '80s, but take them to new interesting places. It's not just reliving whether you got the white blazer, the neon blue blazer. Don Johnson and Scrubs, and oh my god, it's like your Tubbs. I think it's fun. I think it's throwing in the mix of different things that just kind of push a bunch of really cool '80s buttons, and then kind of also the interesting thing about it too is like it's cool. It's aesthetically cool, but it's also without I guess the anxiety that actually happened in the '80s, where everyone's worried about like actually getting nuked by the Russians. You deal with like the threats you've got, like the vapor, but it's cool, right? It's not just deadly; it's also potentially powerful for your characters. So it's a very interesting kind of. It's fun to play with, and it's unique too, right? It's not just what everybody else is doing in RPGs. It's got super unique. So
yeah, that was one of my main goals when making it. Was like, I need this to be different from the other Savage World settings out there. Like, originally when I wanted to do the game, it was essentially like G.I. Joe, and then I realized that there was a G.I. Joe Freedom Squadron out there. I was like, okay, I can't do that. I need to do my own thing. So that's essentially like, again, like the snowball effect is like, well, what do I lean into, and how do I make it different from the other settings that make it worth somebody picking up? I want you to have a reason to buy my thing and enjoy it and play it. So
nice. Very creative, sir. I think you're kind of. That's one of the things we were talking about before was just like on platforms, and how like you put out your first game on itch, and that's a kind of a very unique little segment of the RPG publishing community. And then we're talking about tabletop or Drive-Thru RPG, and how that ecosystem works, and then being your own publisher, and I hope it just continues to snowball for you, because it's great seeing creativity in the space, new ideas. I guess you're not going to get anywhere elsewhere. And the other cool things too, like I noticed on for Monster Truckers, you're doing a sticker. If you're if you're a follower in the background, it's like that's just cool stuff too, because the people love merch, and doesn't always have to be a dice, which are kind of pricey actually. So stickers are totally in theme for kind of the stuff that you're creating around. So anything else you want to share? Anything else like it sounds like the Kickstarter is coming along well on delivery. Next big project's kind of percolating. Any other cool things that you want folks to know about Table Cat, or you and your 3 cats?
Beyond that, like beyond so I want to make sure that everyone knows that I'm continuing to support Streetwolves. There's more Streetwolves on the horizon. The next thing I'd like to do that's outside of the Kickstarter is I have this adventure called Heart of Glass, which is this mystery where the Streetwolves are a fish out of water in a small town. It's kind of the sandbox adventure where they got to go around and solve this mystery, and they don't know who they trust and all this kind of stuff. It's really, really fun. And it's got a component in it where the players, well, the characters find tapes, and on the tapes there's little clues or insights on what's going on. And I want in real life to have recorded, audio segments, and working with Megan Caves of Gone Rogue Entertainment, who's on my shirt.
Nice.
Who's gonna like act out those audio segments.
Oh, that's great.
So
that is awesome.
Yeah, that's one that will probably hit like Kickstarter. And the idea right now is like, I guess this is the exclusive, is that I think it might be like sort of like an album where that's the single, the big track, and then I'll have some other adventures on there too, like some new ones that haven't been really like ever released, and then I'll probably have some of the stuff that's like timed Kickstarter stuff. So Christian Name's adventure and some Candace's adventures, they're going to write one, so like kind of just package it all up in like an adventure book, but with the one premiere one being Heart of Glass. So
that's awesome. I love it. I just the unique branding of content that way, I think, is a great idea. I mean, I love when Carl Kiesler puts characters in like we had a game where they were in like not 8-track, but the after 8-track was regular cassette tapes. So you had a little cassette that was your character, and the stats were on the back of the cassette, and like the liner notes that were in a cassette were your character sheet. And I mean, I just love it. It's so immersive and cool, and Savage Worlds lends itself to it more than pretty much any other system does. At least the community certainly does. We like decorating and being in theme and making the party look like a party. And
well, you bring up cassette. I have the Streetwolves USB cassette. So
oh my God, that's so
somebody
good.
said something in the chat, I think, about so like it's on a USB drive. So this is like the game and the music and stuff, and it's got like a reversible. So this is a character in universe that's just this kind of funny character. So if you flip the cassette tape around, I haven't heard there, you can make the cassette be her first release. But on the outside, it's the Streetwolves branding and everything. So. But yeah, this is
God, that is super awesome.
This is a big like one, like I've done a couple cons where I've run a booth, and like this is the thing that gets people's attention more like than like, because it's just sitting out there and like, what's going on, they want to look at it. And I think I've gotten people into Savage Worlds through the tape, where like you first got to explain the setting, and then you got to be like, okay, then it requires this other thing, and then they'll like I've sold a few copies of Savage Worlds, so it's it's pretty cool. So
was that something you found elsewhere? Did you someone else do, like how did you get to that? That is super creative. I mean, it hits every note that I've been talking about like immersive, bringing out the theme. Also, freaking cool, and rule of cool is like the number one rule. So how did you come across that idea? Because I think it's great. I think it's
I was just thinking of like cool things to do with the Kickstarter, and looking at like promo merch and stuff, and I saw that people were selling these USB cassette things, and then so I was like, well, maybe I'll just make a label, and then it became, well, what if I got the cassette case and then had the actual J cards go in it? So then it became like it's like a whole thing. So the J cards are actually like printed from a group in Philadelphia that they normally do audio cassette tape, printing, but I'm just doing it for my silly game. So that's essentially just it. It was just like, it fit the theme, and it's fun, and it's cool to kind of carry around the game in your pocket if you want, that's how I ended up with the tape. And I like, you probably see that big box there. that's full of like hundreds of the tapes. So you know, they're ready to go. If any, you know, the more people buy them, I have plenty left over. So.
Well, so for folks who didn't get on the Kickstarter, where can they buy? Is it?
It's one of the things. It's one of the things on the backer kit thing, or you know, on that pre-order page. And then once that pre-order page is down, I'll end up selling them on my website and probably the at cons and stuff too. So
nice.
Should be able to pick one up in person.
And is that I will make a wild guess. Is it tablecatgames.com?
Yeah, but
Nice.
I gotta redo that site so I can have the store that I want. Right now, there's some limitations and stuff, but once I work at that, that's hopefully in January. I'm gonna redo the website.
Oh, awesome. Well, head to tablecatgames.com, folks, because and come back in January after Christmas. East Gilliam asks, was it easy to find the cases without the two stabbies to keep the thing winded in them?
Well, it has the stabbies in it. What I do is I clip them a little bit because there's actually like, you know, holes here. It's just that the bottom sprocket lines up with the,
exactly.
They don't move like a real tape would move. These are stuck. So then I end up clipping these all manually a little bit just so it fits in there without like getting all jammed up and stuff. So there's quality control here that I run on every one of them to make sure it opens and closes.
Oh, a true artist.
Yeah, exactly.
Slavering over your work.
I take little hobby cutters and I'm, you know.
Oh my God, I love it. I mean, this is the best part of the hobby. Like I know, you know, the hobby is driven by big corporate interests who, you know, cough off D&D. But to me, this is where the hobby shines, where it's people like you who have a passion for something, a great idea, an idea that would not see the market if it were only controlled by corporations, right? Because like no one's going to be sitting there going, well, we can't find the right lids and this thing doesn't work with it, so we're just not going to do it. Like, you know, no. Then you don't have a cool thing, and I think that's fantastic. Right? So this is the best part. I mean, you know, we tried a little of that kind of thing when we released Buccaneer. We're like, I mean, let's do some pirate merch. Let's do some cool pirate things, even if it's not, you know, super related to what you get to do at the table. Like it's immersive. It brings you into the game. It's a cool prop or whatever. I mean, the cassettes. That's so on brand for the game you created. So the fact that like one, it's useful. You're actually giving people digital and, you know, files with it, but also just the fact that like you're willing to go through the work of like hand touching every single one, fixing them for your players or your customers. Like, you know, that doesn't happen when you get to volume, right? It's like this, like there ain't no way you're doing that for 5,000 things, but you know, for 100 people, like now you've got the author personally made this cooler for me. So I pick one up because that's awesome, dude.
I get a little nervous thinking like some people, if they don't know how small that it is just a one-person operation, they might get it and they go, well, this isn't perfect, right? Like, why is this cut a little bit? But it's like, it's because it's handmade, right? Like I print off all the tape labels and I put all them on the USB plastic myself, you know, and so they might be off a little bit, but you know, I try to make them as good as I can, but I could see people being like super picky because it's not coming from a factory that just pushes out thousands of these things.
There might be a cat hair or two under the label.
There might be if you're lucky, there's a cat hair. But no, I watch out for that too because I'm like, God dang, I don't want any cats. Like I've had to tear labels off when I put them off a little. You know, I've had quite a loss in the ink. Because I've printed off so many of them, and then like, you know, they might not turn out well. But in the end, like I'm very proud of what they look like because I wouldn't want some half-ass thing myself. Like that's with all this stuff that I make is like I take personal pride in everything I make. And so I'm very picky, and you know, there are things that you kind of have to let go here and there. But overall, it's just like I don't want to sell somebody something that I wouldn't want myself. So that's basically the strategy with that.
No, I think you were doing it because again, it's a really cool part of the industry. It really is where the creativity comes from, the uniqueness. also the reason people show up, right? Because it's like inherently this is a communal hobby, and it's about interacting with other people, whether it's virtually or conventions or just feedback. I mean, it really is about shared experiences, and so I mean that's to me that's the best part of the industry is when people do that versus great, corporate entity has a new plushie or a really cool 500 pieces of art because they can afford it thing. Well, great. I mean that has a place too. Awesome. That's how movies get made and more people join. But the true artistic creativity stuff, the stuff where it's like you go to a farmer's market to buy the thing from the person who planted it, and then or the artisan who slaved over it and created it. And you should pay more for it because it's harder. That's the other thing that's really scary about small publishing is that the people think I need to charge less because I'm not corporate, right? Because I don't have 5,000 pieces of art in here. I don't have a $50,000 ad budget or whatever. It's like it's more expensive to print 300 or something than it is to print 10,000
yes.
or something, right? Like
well,
that's what
Yeah, with Streetwolves, I was gonna get 500 copies, which is like enough to sell after the convention. But then I saw like the price was a little reduced if I went 600. But it's just it costs so much more to do like small print runs where and like the difference between 500 and 600 was great enough, but it's just like how much of a gamble am I going to take? Like ordering enough now? Will I run out too soon? I don't know what the demand's going to be like when I get all my extra copies. But hopefully I can do a second print run Kickstarter if I have to. But yeah, it's all that's the scariest part of being an indie creator is when you get to like the printing stuff and go, oh, I have to spend a couple $1,000s right now. When you're just doing the you're paying for the art and everything, that can be expensive too. But the PDFs are just so much easier just to put out there when then you have the printing cost.
No, it's just super scary. And then it's also like, if I allow PDFs, am I gonna lose people who would buy a book to a PDF? And like, even if the margin of PDF is great, right? It's pixels versus digital versus physical. But then it's also like, well, but I also lose that income that's also then going to print the books, right? And then it's like, well, if I really need to get to that huge scary thing, people don't realize this, and it has nothing to do with the RPG industry. It's just the printing industry at large. Like there is a big price break at 1,000 copies, and not a huge price, but it's significant enough where if you can get to 1,000, like it's worth doing. But if you only get 300 or 400 backers, it's like, well, can I afford to pay for 600 more?
Yeah. And
then sit on them or, hope to sell them later. And then that's the big uncertainty, right? Is like, what if the demand falls off? What if, we're not, but like, what if there's a new edition that comes out and, all of a sudden the old edition stuff just doesn't sell anymore. And I need 3 or 4 years to sell the rest of those 600. Or the scary budget. And I know a lot of small time publishers can't even have this as a luxury, but there's also like the good business of, when I sell through my remainder stock, I have enough money that I've made from that to just fund the next print run.
Yeah.
So I can keep it in print. That's out of touch for a lot of folks. It's like, well, wait a minute, my margins aren't good enough, and I don't have enough initial sales to hope to do that, or or just the scary uncertainty of like, well, maybe I can sell 500, but I certainly can't sell 3,000 or whatever. Like that's out of our no one's done that or whatever, and it's like. The numbers are scary, right? And then that 1,000 number for getting a really good price break is, it is it's unattainable for all but the fewest of kind of the licensees and aces and small time publishers because, that's just the size of our market. The market is there's so many other games, and we don't have the luxury of like when I look back at like D&D sales during the 70s, and they're moving hundreds of thousands of units a month. I'm just like, oh my God, why does it not feel like we do that these days? Because it doesn't feel like that. We're moving hundreds of thousands of units a month. Like we're not. So it seems scary, but it's like, is the market really bigger? And if it is, are we just that much more fractured? Where Pirate Borg and Free League and whatever, they all have their own little piece, and we're all kind of siloed off on it. And I don't really have the answers on that. It's almost like election math. It's like you need some guy with a PhD and they just stand in front of a board and kind of gesticulate a lot. But it's scary for a small time publisher, right? Because it's like And thank you for going to print, because a lot of folks choose not to, and it's like, but it's so much better when you have a print product. So.
Well, that's we're talking about the pre-followers to like Kickstarter and BackerKit. That's another reason why it's so important, because I need to know if enough people are interested in this for me to be able to scale what I'm going to get afterwards, and even before, because it's like, well, if only 100 people want this thing, then I might not have as many like stretch goal tiers and all that kind of stuff and all these extra things. And also you had said that Savage Worlds isn't going to do a new edition soon. I think Shane had said something like that, and I was just like, oh, thank God. I don't like, that would be a huge nightmare if, I get the load of Streetwolves and you guys are like, great news, brand new edition of Savage Worlds coming out.
I'd be happy. I think the current theme is that we're never going to do a new edition. I mean, I never say never, but there is no hint that this is kind of the game we like playing. And not to take too much Savage Worlds for the university, but it's the game we play now is just the obvious evolution, not revolution, from the initial game that Shane and Clint made. And it's basically house rules that kind of got added. And then, hey, well, let's do some toolkit stuff once you get the companions. But as someone who published, I think, one of the last big Ace Kickstarters before Suede, Buccaneer was pre. It's like, immediately it's like, well, it's not Suede, so why? And it's like, oh, sorry, but
it's tough.
No, we ain't doing that. So no worries, folks. We're not playing edition works ourselves. There is nothing in the works as far as redoing core. So you're safe. But that's another thing too, is like we love seeing Aces and Swag and the other licensees succeed, and we're in a weird spot. We are just big enough that people think we're a big company as Pinnacle, but it is only a handful of folks really. And and yes, it allows us to do more than one person operation, but it's not a whole lot more. And if folks want to compare us to companies that are many times our size, and it's a good thing, right? It means we've got fans and we've got we're sending a cooler message. But right. I think. Yeah, brand new books, but hey, we're going to do cover variants, as in you're going to need a new cover because we're releasing all new worlds. Yeah, no. But I'd be happy if it was Suede forever. It works out. But it is one of those things where I would love to see just the Ace community grow by just double. Doesn't have to be 10 times bigger. Because I think there are like Aces like you, and when I was an Ace or still I'm an Ace, if we got more like 800 backers on a campaign, it ain't too hard to get to the 1,000 print run. And
it'd be a lot easier. Yeah.
Right. It's an easier choice. And so it's great. We'll see stuff I think things, like the recent, some recent Kickstarters, they went print on demand, and I get why they chose that, but it's just oh guys, you don't make anything on print on demand. The quality is not as good, and it's, they take your cash. They get the money, you don't get the money. But also just if more folks could get to that, let's go do a real print run, get the margins we need so that we will justify showing up to conventions for 2 years and selling them out, or keeping it in print, or being able to fund the next project and getting some art and design done before you got to go to Kickstarter. I think it would be a different kind of. I think it's a very vibrant community now because people are very creative. But if they could also start paying themselves back more, would be great. That's kind of a dream of mine. Is yes, it'd be great if it just became a little more profitable. And it still is a labor of love. And you're putting in a lot of man hours, and if you had to pay somebody, it wouldn't be profitable, right? You're doing, you're sticking labels on, and you're doing.
I do all the writing and the layout, and some art type stuff where I cut things out or juice up a stock photo or something like that. But if I didn't do the art and the layout, the book, I wouldn't be making any money off of the book. Mm-hmm. That's for sure. Yeah. And then in addition, I'm cutting off the little plastic pieces on the tapes and all that fun stuff.
It's a labor of love, and I appreciate you doing the work for it, because it does make a difference. It is really, again, we have this in our community that other communities just they don't have it because it doesn't, their business models don't foster it, and I think the rule sets don't encourage it. And I think our rule set encourages it. So, I love your brain, sir. It's great from doing everything from, the crazy kind of battle the elder gods or other monsters on the highway of hell, or take on the Vapor in a Neo-inspired Miami with Russian spies. Like, that's just great stuff. So, so folks, we are at our hour. I appreciate you for coming on. We will be back right at the handcrafted edition. So if you're willing to go to the farmer's market and pay $20 for honey or $40 for honey, like, pay a little bit more for RPGs or give a tip. You
pay less for D&D, pay more for our stuff.
I appreciate that's a whole other argument I'd have on just kind of the intransigence of the industry to change what they think the default price for a book should be. Even before kind of a recent inflationary events, there was like people just still think this is the price for an RPG book, and it's like that's the price from 1989.
Yeah, it hasn't gone up much from that.
No, and like but everything else has. It's like anyways. Different cover for different day, but again, amazing value you're bringing. Thanks for the creativity. I'm gonna go buy one of those USB things because that's the coolest thing I've seen. Great idea for a con, and hopefully we'll see you at the con circuit again next year. At least Gamehole comes. That sounds fun. That's the local one, but
I'm gonna try that one. I hope to see if anybody's at PAX Unplugged and they happen to see me, say hi. I'll hopefully have
Jody will be there, so I think
cool.
Yeah, I think I'm done for the cons for the year, but the year's not that much longer. There's only like 2 months left.
True.
But I heard PAX is great, but it's like, I can't fit another one in this year. But Paul, appreciate you. It's been great. So folks, check out Tabletop Games. There, we throw a bunch of links in the chat. There is a couple mere days left to go grab the pre-order for Streetwolves using the backer kit link. The great campaign, raised over 17K, 368 backers on Kickstarter. Make that number go up. Throw this guy some money because he's doing really cool stuff.
Thank you.
I can't believe it's only $25 for that amazing cassette. So I'm going to go grab that because that is the coolest thing I've seen in gaming in about 6 months, and really great. But stickers, all the coolness. I love your cards. The NPC cards, they're just really cool. So super creative. Appreciate you. Director RPG for folks who want the digital. We threw in the links there. You can go grab this game on itch. The previous edition. Check out the new Tri-Cube Tales when that comes out. Hopefully, you'll also bring to Savage Worlds. But I appreciate you, man. It's been great, and
thank you very much.
I'm glad the community supported you so far, and hopefully they'll continue to because we need some more Streetwolves in our lives. So and John Doom says, "Hey, Wisconsin." Midwest is best. It's a great time coming out to the con and meeting you guys, and I appreciate you having me sign your book. It was an honor to do that. So
I'll sign mine for you next time.
Nice. There we go. Deal. We'll get the J card from the USB because that's super.
There
cool.
We go.
And awesome, guys. Well, I don't know. Let's see. Next week we are launching a Kickstarter on the official stuff, so we're going to do a Tuesday launch day, kind of yay rah funded because. If you guys don't fund a Rips Kickstarter, I don't know what I'm doing here. So that'll be Tuesday, next Tuesday, which is the 12th. And then I'm not sure what's going on with Jam if you're back in town, but we'll let you know in the newsletter. So we'll see you guys on Tuesday for everybody watching the channel on Twitch. And other than that, have a fun weekend. Go out there, play some Savage Worlds, pick up some Streetwolves. And other than that, support the Aces and the Swag community because they're what makes us unique and great. So I appreciate you, everybody. Take it easy, Paul. Thanks for joining us on the chat tonight, and for everybody for the comments. I appreciate y'all. Take it easy, folks.